Hello, welcome to another day of history where we're studying a new chapter in medieval Japan. And if you watched the video from yesterday, if you didn't, stop this video right now, go back to it and do your homework from yesterday. So if you already watched the video from yesterday, we're going to kind of recap a little bit about how Heian-kyo moved from a city called Nara, and it became a very gorgeous city with a lot of beautiful buildings, a lot of stone walls to block out and barricade these magnificent mansions, as well as the Chinese influence of the streets and the Japanese influence of the buildings, kind of the importance of manners, etc. But more specifically today, I wanted to talk to you about the political powers of Heian-kyo and of Japan as a whole. Prior to the Golden Age, during the Heian-kyo period, Japan was ruled by emperors. And it was said that emperors were actually a part of a lineage, and that lineage belonged to the sun goddess. So apparently, all the emperors were descendants of the sun goddess. And because you were a descendant of the sun goddess, that means that you have the right to rule over Japan. That's what they believed. However, during the period that we're in, the Heian period, the power shifted from the emperor to aristocratic families. So these are just wealthy families who are not in the lineage of the sun goddess. They're just rich people living in the city. The emperors kind of had their powers taken away, and these rich families took over power in Japan. The most important family was the Fujiwara family. And the Fujiwara family, they were not supposed to be royal. They weren't in the lineage to become an emperor, but they kind of worked their way to the top, and they ruled in Japan for 300 years. So the Fujiwara family is not an innocent family. They did not work their way to the top ethically or morally. They kind of weaseled their way to the top. And the first thing that they did to get to the place that they were in during the Golden Age, in 858, the Fujiwara women were married into the families of emperors. So the Fujiwaras made sure that the husbands of their daughters became the emperor. Even though these sons were in a royal family, it doesn't always mean that they automatically become the emperor, but the Fujiwaras made sure that they found a way to make their daughters' husbands the ruler. Another way that the Fujiwaras kind of rose to the top was that they acted as kind of the guide and the advisors to the emperor. And when you are the advisor of an emperor, you kind of give them hints. You give them advice. And a lot of times, these advisors end up becoming more powerful than the emperors themselves. They kind of work as the brain of the emperor, and they're able to manipulate the emperor into doing what the advisor wants them to do. And the final way that the Fujiwaras found themselves to be the rulers of Japan was that they convinced older emperors to retire so that a really young ruler or even a child ruler took over. Then the Fujiwaras would kind of act as the advisors of the young emperor and in a way become the ruler themselves, because the young emperor couldn't actually make decisions. So the Fujiwaras would take that as an opportunity for them to kind of, oh yeah, we'll give you advice, right? We'll help you, young ruler. But in turn, they're actually spreading their ideas instead of the ideas of the emperors. The most successful Fujiwara was a man known as Fujiwara Michinaga. And in Japan, you say the last name first. So Fujiwara Michinaga was his name. And he never was an emperor. he never actually was the ruler of Japan. However, he was the father-in-law of 4 emperors, and he was a grandfather of 3 more emperors. And so he really lived a very lavish, wealthy life. Even though he wasn't the actual ruler, he did act as an advisor, and he did hold a lot of power. During this time, he had no royal blood, but he still found a way to work his way into a family of rulers. And he has a quote, and this quote is, "This world is indeed my world." So he kind of talked about how he had the world in the palm of his hand. He had control, and he was able to make a living, a very lavish living, without actually having the name. So even though the Fujiwara family used this time period as kind of the leaders of Japan, even though they never held a royal position or government position, like Michinaga was leading and ruling over Japan without actually having a title, which is crazy. And you might think that this is only for their own benefit, but actually it led to 3 centuries of peace in Japan, which is why this family is so widely known in history in Japan. And that's why the Japanese culture was able to blossom during the Heian period, was a large part because of the Fujiwara family.